Hi everyone, my name is Nikhil and welcome to the Out of Office podcast. Today we have with us a very special guest, Craig Fernandez. Craig is the CEO and founder of Secure My Scholarship. He has been in the Forbes 30 under 30 list. And a fun fact about Craig is that he has never worked a job. So Craig, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks a lot for having me, Nico, and to everybody listening. Pleasure to be here and super excited.
Yeah, I mean, for the audience, we're going to be knowing more about, all of the ventures that Craig has been a part of. And we're going to take a deep dive into, Secure My Scholarship and what has been the idea behind it, how has Craig grown it. And he has never worked a job, which is a very interesting, fun fact about him. I think many people aim to do that, especially students nowadays.
Well, to
Uh,
be to be fair, I've launched 5 companies in my life, starting from when I was 14 until
yes,
my fifth one when I was 25. So I think I've always
you've
been
been in the
about
field.
solving
Yes,
problems and giving people what they want, solving problems, and building ventures out of that. So the
absolutely.
traditional like 9 to 5 corporate life just never appealed to me, I guess.
Was Correct, exactly. And entrepreneurship is all the rage, and I'm pretty sure our audience would love to know more, about your journey. So, Craig, my first question to you would be that, when we spoke earlier, you told me a lot about, your childhood and, the humble beginnings that you've had. So, could you maybe throw some light on what your childhood was like and, yeah, how did it all start?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I was born in Dubai. I'm Indian by nationality, but I was born in Dubai. My parents moved here in the early 90s. They're from Bombay. They moved here looking for work. And usually when people think about Dubai, they think Burj Khalifa or Ferraris or Porsches or
Yeah.
whatever. But my
Yes.
Dubai was very different from the traditional standard perception of Dubai. I grew up on the outskirts of the city in a small, tiny apartment that cost us about 6,000 dirhams a year. That's about 120,000 rupees a year. That's low in India, so you can only imagine how low that is here in the UAE. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that's where I came from. I think a lot of who I am today is because of that background. I saw firsthand the value of hard work when I was a kid. And I think I pretty much realized when I was small, when I was like 10 or 11 or 12, that unless I worked really hard in life, I
Yeah.
was not going to get anything handed to me. Like there was nothing going to be given to me on a silver platter, anything like that. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that's where I came from. I worked extremely hard. I graduated top of my class in school. I wanted to go to university. My plan for university was always to go to the US to study. I don't know why I wanted to study in the US. That was my dream. I told my
Yeah.
parents this and I said, I want to go to the US. And they
Yeah.
said, listen, buddy, we can't afford that. Like it's too expensive. You gotta, either go back home to India or we'll try to find you something here in the UAE. But you
Yeah.
can't go to America. America was my dream, though. I didn't want to give up on that. So I remember I applied to 11 different universities all over the US, got 9 different admits, and finally was able to find a university that would give me the scholarships that I needed to actually go. And that's what
Yeah.
made it affordable to me. I think that part of my life, just when I was graduating high school, trying to figure out like where to go to university, applying to all these colleges,
Yeah.
interviewing, doing extracurriculars or whatever, I think that really imprinted on me just a sense of how broken the education system is, wherein I wanted to study. I graduated top of my class, but I was told, listen, we can't afford to send you to university. I ended up getting the
Yeah.
scholarships to go, but I
Yes.
mean, for a lot of families out there who are, who come from the middle class or working class families, they can't afford to send their kids to the universities that their children want to study at, and that I
Yeah.
think imprinted on me when I was going through that process. But yeah, I managed to get to the USA, study over there, got my scholarships, went there, studied there for 4 years, came back and launched what was I think my first full venture, called Lock and
Yeah.
Stock when I was 20 years old, and
Correct.
then the rest happened.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Very inspiring journey, Craig. And what you mentioned about the loopholes of the education system is very true. We'll get into that, take a deep dive into that later. But I would love to know more about your first like proper venture. So can you tell me about how the idea of lock and stock came about, and what was the idea behind it? What was the motivation behind it, and how did you develop it?
Yeah, so the origin story of Lock and Stock is actually kind of funny. I got the idea for Lock and Stock when I was in my last semester at college, and I was an econ major. So, I was in an econ class one day. There were about 30 or 35 kids in that classroom, and I love economics, but economics can be a little boring or a little dry every once in a while. So I
Yeah.
was in that lecture, and I think my dad messaged me. I was in the U.S., so I think he was saying good night or something. He was 10 hours ahead, so I think he was saying good night, or I don't really remember what he messaged me to say. But he messaged me on WhatsApp, and I remember I responded to him almost instantaneously within a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And he responds back saying, what are you doing on your phone? Shouldn't you be in class right now? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, man, this class is kind of boring. I'm getting an A in this class
Yeah.
anyways. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
like any father should, he was like, no, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. You're wasting my money. What are you doing? And yeah, we went back and forth for a little bit, but I finally put my phone aside. And I don't really know what happened, but in that moment, kind of like a light bulb went off. And I remember I looked around the classroom, and out of the 30, 35 students in that class, almost each and every single one of them was just looking down. They were on their phone or on their tablet or on their laptop. No one was paying attention. And the poor professor was just talking and talking and talking, that like whatever that, because he's getting paid to do that, so he's not going to stop. And
Yeah.
I saw this, and I was like, wow, is this a problem? Like is this what our classrooms have been reduced to? And I'm not gonna lie, I had probably been a part of that problem for my entire college life. But I was like, damn,
Yeah.
okay, like this is interesting. So I went home that day and did a bunch of research. And back then it was 2017, so social media addiction, digital addiction was not
Yep.
really very widespread. People didn't really know about this. And
Yeah.
did a bunch of research, and eventually I stumbled upon this like research paper by a team from the Department of Psychology at the University of Wisconsin or something like that. I can't
Okay.
remember the source, but I stumbled upon this
Yeah.
research paper which actually conducted a bunch of experiments and stipulated, I mean, their hypothesis at the end of their study was that on average, 26% of all classroom time is spent on a digital device for non-educational purposes. Now that's a crazy number, right? 26%, that's a quarter of all classroom time. If you think about the
Yeah.
loss, the indirect loss to a student from a lack of learning, the direct loss from a wastage of tuition money, the loss to an
Yeah.
institution, the loss to society in general, literally,
Yes.
it was startling. And so I remember speaking to a couple of friends, and I discussed this problem that I'd unearthed with them,
Yeah.
and I was like, let's do something about this. So then we were like, okay, fine, we want to get students to stay off their phones. How can we do
Yeah.
that? Like, how do we actually get someone to keep their phone away? Because it's like Instagram or Snapchat or Facebook or whatever are incredibly
Right.
addictive. How do we get someone to keep
Yes.
their phone away? At
Yeah.
this time, at this point in time, I was in my final year of college. Everybody else that I was speaking to was also in their final year of college. Those were my friends. And I remember I was particularly broke at that time. I didn't really have any money. And so,
Yeah.
and we were all broke. And somebody
Yeah.
actually said, you know what? If someone gave me a buy one, get one at Papa John's, maybe I'll keep my phone away. What the hell? Like, if someone gave me a buy one, get one at Starbucks, maybe I'll keep my phone away. And we were just like, all right, that's pretty cool. And then we ran with that. I graduated from university in May of 2017. Before that, I'd be in class, I'd be sketching out like designs and whatever, trying to build like an
Yes.
initial team. But I graduated in May of 2017. I came back to Dubai in June. We
Yes.
incorporated in July, and we launched
Yes.
on September 24th, 2017. And
That's
that's
pretty fast.
lock and stock. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, excellent. So how did it like pick up, Craig? Because I know that there are other productivity tools as well. I don't know if at that time there were that many productivity tools which kept people off their social media. But like, how do you think? Like, how did you market Lock and Stock, and how did it pick up and gather so many users?
I think, man, the key to answering that question lies in the question itself. The question was, how did you? The question was, there are a lot of productivity tools. How did you market it?
Yes.
We marketed the product by doing exactly the opposite. We didn't tell anyone it was a productivity tool. We basically
Okay.
made it a lifestyle application. Not like, at least, okay, the aim of the application was to get
Yeah.
students to stay off their phones in class and pay attention. And it did that. But we
Correct.
wouldn't tell students, like, learn more, learn more, learn more, stay off your phone. We tell students,
Correct.
do you wanna buy one get one free at the movies, or do you want 30% off at the water park or whatever? And
Yeah.
we appeal to that consumer side of the student demographic. I think part and parcel of being a student is that you're broke, you don't really have any cash.
Yeah.
And if you're 19 or 20 or whatever, you want to do a lot of stuff. You want to go outside and do
Correct.
everything. But you don't have any money per se. And that's really
Correct.
what we appeal to. And then, I
Yes.
mean, so when we launched on September 24th, 2017, we launched with 12 partner brands. And
Oh
keep in mind,
wow.
we were completely bootstrapped. No one's taking any salary. We didn't have a marketing
Yeah.
budget or anything. I'm just messaging
Yes.
people that I knew on like I'm messaging people on like LinkedIn or Instagram that I personally knew, and asking them to like
Yeah.
share the application on their profiles or with their friends or whoever. We're trying to solicit like free press from whoever the hell will write about us. We're trying to get them to write about us or whatever. But it's
Correct.
completely guerrilla marketing. But we launched with
Yeah.
12 partner brands on September 24th. By the end of the year, we had I think about 60 partner brands by the end of 2017. By the end of 2018, we had about 700. By the end of 2019, we had over 1,300. And then we went
Wow.
from there, literally. What eventually happened was a flywheel began to form, wherein the more partner brands we added, the more students would download the application, and the more students downloaded the application, the more partner brands came on board, and that kind of
Correct.
growth flywheel just kind of formed in and of itself.
It's a
Within
snowball effect.
Yeah, yeah. And within 2 years of us launching the application, we had basically built the largest student lifestyle platform in
Oh
the
wow.
UAE, and bootstrapped our way to that as well. I think at its
Yes.
peak, Lock and Stock had 80,000 active user students in the UAE.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
80,000 sounds very small compared to, 10 million or 20 million or whatever that you hear with
Yeah.
consumer tech companies. But in the
Yeah.
UAE, you got to bear in mind that between the ages of, I mean, our target demographic was just college students. I mean, that's what we were aiming for.
Correct.
Between or even if you expand that to just high school and college, between the ages of 15 and 23, which is high school and
Yeah.
college, like undergrad, bachelor's, whatever, between the age group of 15 to 23
Correct.
in the UAE, there are only 200,000 students. There aren't like that, that's it. And out of those 200,
Yes.
220,000 students, we had 80,000 students
80,000.
on the application, using the application. It was ubiquitous. If you walked into a school at that time, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, if you
Yeah.
walked into any school or university in the UAE, every
Yes.
single student in that school or university was either on Lock and Stock or was previously on Lock and Stock or had their
Wow.
best mates using Lock and Stock. It was ubiquitous. I will, to this day, still wear my Lock and Stock shirt on the metro in Dubai, and
Yeah.
people will walk up to me and go like, "Oh my God, Lock and Stock! I used to use that when I was in college. Wow, like, did you used to work
Yeah.
there?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I was an intern there. I used to handle sales or whatever." And just like have a candid conversation with them. But it was
Yeah.
huge. It was the biggest student lifestyle platform in the UAE at that
Wow.
time. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. That's a great feat, and 80,000 does not sound like a small number at all. It's a pretty big number. So it's a great and incredible feat, and I think you definitely identified the need when I think it was a need in the market, and I think the timing of launching a product also matters a lot. I think it matters greatly when exactly you're launching a product, because I think it was like during that phase only, like 18, 19, 20, like the advent of social media addiction really, skyrocketed. So I think the timing of launching the product was also immaculate. So excellent, Greg. I want to know more about your next venture, which was Secure My Scholarship, and obviously you told me about how you had identified that gap in the market as well. But I want to know a little more about the early days of Secure My Scholarship, and how did you like properly validate the idea of this startup, your venture?
Um, the idea of validation actually just happened by chance, honestly, truth be told. When Lock and Stock was running at full swing, we had a couple of universities. So the application was primarily, if you're a student, go to class, lock your phone, stay off your phone, get rewards, and then use those
Yeah,
rewards to get offers and discounts from our partners. I mean, that was the
correct,
application was a double-sided marketplace in and of itself.
correct.
But when it was at its heyday, we had a couple of universities that actually approached us and said, "Hey, listen, we are universities. We want students. You guys have a lot of students. How can we work together?" And we said, "Okay, fine. Let's experiment with something." And so we kind of created a small subsection or a small feature on the app. We didn't really know what it was going to do or where it was going to go or anything like that. But we created a
Yeah.
small little feature on the application which basically sets scholarships. And borrowing from the same logic, students could lock their phones when they were in class, collect rewards, and then use those rewards to apply for scholarships at universities. And we just kind of roll the dice with this. We wanted to see if it would work and if like enough students would actually give a damn to actually lock their phones, use their rewards, whatever.
Yeah.
And we added this to the application, and yeah, it caught steam. One of the things that we noticed was that with Lock and Stock specifically, Lock and Stock was a highly localized application. It's because
Yeah.
if the offers and discounts were coffee shops or restaurants in Dubai or neighboring cities, Sharjah, Abu Dhabi, whatever,
Correct.
you have to live in Dubai to actually avail those offers and discounts. You can't live in, I don't know, South Korea. It just
Correct.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But the scholarships and fee waivers element of the application suddenly started getting
Yeah.
organic traction because we would receive downloads or registrations from outside the UAE. They just almost always delete the app within one day of downloading the application.
Yes.
But all of a sudden, we would start to get students who are locking their phones and applying for these scholarships from Bahrain or from Qatar or from India or from other countries around the world, along
Yeah.
with students from the UAE as well who are also applying for these scholarships. And
Correct.
I guess we thought to ourselves, wow, like, have we stumbled upon something much larger over here? I spoke earlier about how the search for scholarships imprinted on myself. If I didn't get the scholarships that I got, I would not have gone to the university that I went to. And perhaps my entire life might have been different, perhaps not. I have no idea. But the
Yeah.
scholarships that I got changed my life, and that's the truth. And similarly for myself, I mean, we're an incredibly young team. The average
Yeah.
age at the company is around 26. I'm
Yeah.
27. So we're an
Yeah.
incredibly young team. And I think almost all senior leadership positions are with people who are 23 or 24 or 25, and they're running teams, literally. All of
Yeah.
us had been through the university journey a couple of years prior.
Correct.
And we all kind of come from similar backgrounds, wherein, just middle class, both parents were salaried employees, both parents worked, family
Correct.
dynamic that relies heavily on saving or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how we came up. And
Correct.
I think it's safe to say that everybody on the team had to rely on scholarships to some degree or the other in their own individual lives to go and do
Correct.
what they wanted to do in university.
Correct.
So when we kind of stumbled upon this and we were seeing this data, we said to ourselves, have we stumbled upon something that's much bigger than what we'd initially set out to do? Helping people
Yeah.
stay off their phones is awesome. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And while Lock and Stock was doing its thing and was around, Lock and Stock accounted for over 2 million years not minutes, not hours, over 2 million
Wow.
years of cumulative time spent offline. And that's time that we
Wow.
put back into the hands of students and
Mm.
teachers and professors and educators, and we're very proud of that. That's
Yes.
amazing. Helping make the
Yes.
entire learning experience better,
Mm.
literally. Helping keep students off their phones is amazing.
Yes.
But I think that helping students afford university is so much larger and so much bigger
Yes.
than that. So we kind of spoke
Absolutely.
internally and we said, you know what, like this is what we're seeing, this is the data that we're seeing. What do we want to do about this? So we,
Mm.
I guess internally as a team, took a call
Mm.
to pivot the company from Lock and
Mm.
Stock into
Yeah.
Secure My Scholarship, which basically is an edtech
Mm.
platform that connects students with
Mm.
scholarships and fee waivers, adds transparency and efficiency in the
Mm.
process, helps
Mm.
students discover what is available. You know, man, honestly, many of the times the scholarships available on Secure My Scholarship are
Mm.
scholarships that are already being offered by
Yeah.
universities. Just nobody
Yeah.
knows about it because
Nobody
nobody
knows
has
about it.
time to go through
True.
500 university websites and
Yeah.
check all their pages or whatever. Oftentimes, universities will offer a scholarship or a fee waiver, but
Mm.
they won't tell you about it. They'll only tell you after you apply. So you have no
Correct.
idea that this is being offered, whatever.
Correct.
Um,
Agree.
and so that's basically what we did. We pivoted Lock and Stock. We already
Mm.
had a ton of students who we could just
Mm.
really utilize or
Mm.
port over to Secure My Scholarship. Basically, I guess
Yeah.
it made kickstarting Secure My Scholarship so much easier because we already had that student base. But
Correct.
we pivoted the entire company to Secure My Scholarship, which, as I said, is an edtech platform that connects students with
Mm.
scholarships. Our
Yes.
mission with Secure My Scholarship, man, is to help connect students with $100 million in scholarships and help change the
Yes.
lives of 100,000 students around the world. And that's what
Absolutely.
we're doing. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Um, yeah, excellent. So, Craig, tell me one more thing. Like, I think when you're building a startup, you mentioned that, everybody in your team is very young. And I myself, I know like the importance of having a good team when you are, growing a startup or a business. So, what is your opinion on, like curating a team, like a family for your business? How do you go about the process of team building in your company?
Um, Two things I think over there. Number
Mm.
one, when you are just launching or just getting started, if you have
Yeah.
people within your network that you know
Mm.
from when you're in school or when you're in university or if you work with them or whatever. But if you know
Mm.
them and you
Mm.
know what drives them, if you know what's in their heart, it's so much
Yeah.
easier. And the reason I
Correct.
say that is because startups are built on trust and faith. I think
Mm.
that's
Mm.
extremely critical. When we were launching
Yes.
Secure My Scholarship, it was much different because we already had a team in place and we basically just pivoted the company to Secure
Mm.
My Scholarship. The team was already there, the
Yeah.
infrastructure, the ops, everything was already there for us to
Correct.
pivot. But when we were
Yeah.
launching Lock and Stock, I was 20 years old, and so even I was 20 years old, and I've never worked in any job before. So my
Yeah.
network itself was just limited to people I knew when I was a kid, when I was in school
Correct.
or university or whatever. But I
Mm.
made sure that the team that we built when we were launching Lock and Stock were people that I knew personally.
Mm.
I knew what drove them. I knew what they wanted, and I knew I could
Correct.
rely on them. Right, because when
Mm.
you're building a startup, you are going to war, and if you're going to war, you gotta know that the guy you're fighting alongside is gonna have your back when the
Back.
going
Yeah.
gets tough. So that's
So
number
true.
one, what I would highly recommend.
Yes.
And number two
Mm.
is always hire for passion, literally. Um, I think this is unique to ourselves or myself or ourselves. We
Mm.
like to build products or companies that have an impact. Build
Yeah.
products or build startups that make the world a better place. Lock and Stock, help people stay off their phones in class, help them learn better. Secure My
Yes.
Scholarship, help connect students with scholarships, help make education more accessible and affordable. And
Yes.
so when recruiting,
Mm.
we would make sure that we brought on board people who were passionate about these causes.
Yeah.
Missionaries, not mercenaries. Because again, when the going gets tough, or when things are difficult, or I mean, in any startup, perhaps in any startup, and especially so for bootstrapped startups, in the
Yeah.
beginning, I mean, you may not be able to pay salaries, any salaries, or forget about like market rate salaries or
Yeah.
whatever. And at that
Yeah.
point in time, people are like everybody is working on passion. They want to solve the problem that the
Yeah.
startup is solving, and that's
Correct.
absolutely critical. Hire for passion, not for skills, is something that
So true.
we hold very true. That was true on day one. That is still true today. Whenever we hire anybody,
Yeah.
literally.
Correct. Agreed. Agreed. I think this is like one mistake that people typically make. I think when even they are hiring, like even just in the process of hiring, I think they focus too much on skill rather than fully understanding, what the person is, what are his or her beliefs, what do they stand for, and I think that is very important if you're looking for a person to work with you long term. It's like they need to have that same kind of passion for the thing that you're doing. So it's very important. And okay, so Craig, one more thing that comes to my mind is that you said that when you were promoting lock and stock, it was very like restricted in some way to only Dubai. But with Secure My Scholarship, you are trying to reach a global audience. And like my question to you is for people, other startups maybe who want to do the same and they want to scale globally. How do they do that? What should be the strategy for it? What are you implementing? Like with Secure My Scholarship to market your business like globally.
Um, Tricky question, I think.
Yeah.
So I'll answer this from how we solve this per se. Secure My
Yeah.
Scholarship has always been product led. We focus on product. We focus on building the best platform possible, the best product possible, making sure that students have what they need, and the most frictionless experience possible. That's number one.
Yeah.
And from there on in, I mean, if we get any organic PR, or people see us on social media, or maybe they find our website or
Yeah.
whatever, that's great. But we focus on product first. Aside from that, we focus on customer experience. This is something that I like to read a lot, and one of the companies and or
Yeah.
founders that I
Yeah.
actually love, or at least the journey of the company and journey of the founder, is Amazon. I think
Yeah.
Amazon is incredible, and Jeff Bezos is a
Yes.
legend.
Yes.
And Jeff Bezos said, nothing is more important for a company or a startup than the customer experience. Make
Yes.
sure customers, no matter whether you have a million customers or 10 customers or one customer, make
Yeah.
sure that customer has the best experience possible. Like
Yeah.
100 out of 100 experience, literally. So we focus a
Mm.
lot on the customer
Yeah.
experience. We focus a lot on product. And that's really what drives our entire strategy per se. That's those two things. But aside
Yeah.
from that, I think the key really to scaling globally is it's paradoxical. I think the key to scaling globally is pick one or two regions, focus on those, while simultaneously building pillars for viral marketing, if that makes sense. So I think
Yeah.
to explain that broader, we focus, I guess, in terms of like paid campaigns, or where we're doing in-person events or whatever. We only
Yeah.
do it in a couple of places that are high priority for us, while
Yeah.
simultaneously focusing our other marketing channels on broader organic approach for visibility in other markets. But I think
Yeah.
you can't scale everywhere at the same time. That's why I
Yeah.
said like product and
Yeah.
customer experience that brings in. So on a weekly basis, we have students from 30 something countries coming to our platform. That's product driven, that's customer experience driven, nothing else,
Yeah.
literally.
Yes.
However, 60% of our traffic comes from just two countries. That's the UAE and India. So our two main
Yeah.
focus areas. And that's where I guess the focus lies per se. So it's it's kind of a double engine approach, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like what you said about like customer experience, I think ultimately the most important marketing strategy is just word of mouth. And word of mouth spreads with, good customer experience. So I think even like when it comes to, scaling globally or domestically even, it's I think more about, what people are saying about your product. And ultimately if like the experience is good, the like, word of mouth will spread about your product and it will scale ultimately like globally as well. So I think that is why customer experience is very important. Agreed, totally agreed. Okay, so Greg, tell us something like your experience being like in the Forbes 30 under 30 list. How was that like? How did that happen?
That was great, man. Somebody from Forbes reached out and said, "Hey, listen, we'd love to consider you for this. Why don't you apply?" So
Yeah.
figured, that there wasn't any cost to apply or anything. Took 30
Okay.
minutes, submitted an application form. They asked a bunch of questions. There was a bunch of interviews, whatever, because they have to validate or vet the information that comes in. So I
Nice.
mean, they asked a bunch of questions and went through a couple of interview rounds or whatever. But it was actually very funny because I did all this in like March or April.
Yeah.
2023, and yeah, I mean, once everything was submitted, then that's it. Like, there's nothing else for me to do. So I kind of forgot about
Yeah.
it. Whatever. Wasn't really thinking about it. Fast forward to I think December 2023, so end of the year,
Yeah.
where I'm actually in a meeting and I was working from home that day, much like today as well. I was working
Yeah.
from home that day, and I was in a meeting, and my fiance actually comes running into the room and she says, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god." So I kind of like really quickly like muted the meeting. I'm like, "What's wrong with you? I'm on a call. What are you doing?" And then she kind of like storms out, like upset or whatever. I get back on the call. The call goes on for about 30 minutes more. And
Okay.
I wrap up the call and I go outside. And
Yeah.
I was like, "What happened?" And she's like, "Oh, you got selected." I was like, selected for
Okay.
what? I don't know what you're selected for what. And she's like, oh, Forbes 30 under 30. I'm like, oh, I mean, I forgot about that. That was like 9 months ago, literally. And that's kind of how I got the news. Um,
Okay.
but it was great, man, honestly. Truth be told, man, for me personally, it's okay. Like I don't really care about awards or anything like that. I love the mission that we're on, and every time we can help make a student's life better, that's
Yeah.
actually that means more than 1,000 awards for me. Truth be
Yeah.
told.
Yeah.
So for me personally, it was okay, but I know just for the team, for our shareholders, for the company in general,
Yeah.
I think it meant a lot because
Yeah.
it was kind of validation or
Correct.
credibility,
To
but
keep going. To keep going.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it
it
means that
was.
you're heading in the right direction in some way or the other. I think.
Yeah,
I think.
credibility while the credibility while association, being selected by Forbes, this that, being recognized
Correct.
by Forbes. I
Yeah.
think that was great for the team and for our shareholders, for the company. Great
Yeah.
validation for our mission, in essence.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so that's it's. I think this is an experience that many people actually often wonder about. How this how do these lists work? So that was, I think, an interesting thing for the audience as well. So, Craig, one more thing that I would like to ask you. When you're an entrepreneur, there are several things that you need to juggle, like at the same time. How do you prioritize like tasks, and how do you manage your time in general to like get everything done? Because sometimes like being an entrepreneur is like really overwhelming because there's so many tasks that you need to take care of, especially in the initial stages, like when you're just starting off with your venture. So in general, like how do you manage your time and how do you manage to get everything done?
Um, Well, for starters, if you ask anybody who knows me, I am a workaholic. I'm working all the time, 24/7, 7 days a week. That's just who I am. And I
Yeah.
think that also stems from just being mission oriented, impact driven per se. I love the mission that we're on. So I want
Yeah.
to work 24/7 or 7 days a week.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I think more individually or specific to myself, let's break down the problem, right? I think the question that you asked is actually a very relevant question. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs fail to tackle this properly and then experience burnout. They're
Yeah.
unable to juggle the many responsibilities or requirements. There's too much happening at one time, and they
Yeah.
eventually face burnout per se.
Correct.
The way I see it, there are 24 hours in a day. Let's assume you sleep for 6 hours, so you have 18 hours of conscious day, I suppose,
Yeah.
18 hours that you're awake.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that you utilize these 18 hours as productively as you can. If you can do more in these 18 hours than the
Yeah.
next guy or the next guy or the competition or whoever, if you can get
Hmm.
more out of your 18 hours than they can get out of theirs, and if you do
Yeah.
that every day, every week, every month, every year, consistently, you will win in the long run. So I mean that's the base problem. Now, how do you do that? Physically, it is impossible to remember all of the things that you have to do.
Correct.
Every day when I wake up in the morning, there are 50 or 60 or 70 tasks that have to get done every
Correct.
single day. And it's impossible to remember all of these things. So
Yeah.
I'm actually a very religious user of a task management tool where literally everything, down to the smallest possible thing to the
Yeah.
biggest possible thing, is logged in a task management tool. Every single day I wake
Yeah.
up, I look at that, I know exactly what I have to do, and then I rock and
Correct.
roll. I basically train myself to not have to remember what I have to do. And basically,
Yeah.
if it's not on the tool, I don't use it. I use Asana for anybody who's listening. I find
Yeah.
that super easy, super convenient. But I mean, there are a ton of task management tools.
Tons. Yeah.
I think the key over there is discipline because literally, if it's not on the tool, it's not going to be done. And I've trained myself to not
So true.
remember anything, literally anything. I write down in a notebook any
Yeah.
ad hoc tasks that come up, and at the end of the day, I just schedule them onto the
Yeah.
tool and rock and roll. And yeah, as I said,
Correct.
like every single day when I wake up, there's 60 or 70 tasks that have to be done, and then you just roll through them. Me
Correct.
personally, I prioritize business development or growth over any tasks. So if there are too many tasks in one day, biz dev or growth tasks take priority over other tasks. Unless it's internal team stuff, then that always comes first. But yeah, that's kind of how I internally prioritize. But for the most part, I try to get
Yeah.
all 50 or 60 or 70 done in that day itself. And yeah, that's how I do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maintaining like a sheet or just having a task management tool is so important because you can't remember so many tasks. Like it's impossible. So these like tools definitely they do help. Totally agreed. Um, all right, Greg. So like for aspiring like entrepreneurs, people who want to start their own startups or business ventures, what advice would you like to give them? Like what advice? Yeah, if they're just starting out.
Um, There is a saying that I like, which I think sums up the biggest piece of advice that I can give any entrepreneur. The saying is, blessed are those who believe yet cannot see. For any entrepreneur or founder or whatever, you just have to believe, literally. That is the most vital ingredient, whether you have the funds or whether you have the team or whether you have it all figured out. Most likely you don't. It's fine
Yes.
as long as you believe in what you are doing. Startups are built on hope and startups are built on faith. And you have to believe in what you are building and believe that nothing can stop you from building what you want to build.
Yeah.
And then give it your all, literally.
So true.
That's the biggest piece of advice that I would say. But there's one more as well, man. I mentioned Jeff Bezos earlier. There's a great
Yeah.
story about Jeff Bezos from when he was younger, wherein, I think he was like 33, he was working in New York. He quits his job, takes his wife and kids from New York, goes to Seattle to launch a startup in his garage called
Yeah.
Amazon. And a couple of years later, somebody asked him, and they said, that was crazy. Who does that with a wife and kids at the age of
Yeah.
33? You quit your
Yeah.
job, you move across the country to launch a startup in your garage. That's
Yeah.
nuts. And Jeff Bezos said something that I think should hold true for all entrepreneurs, or aspiring entrepreneurs at least.
Yeah.
And Bezos said, he said, my biggest fear in life is having regrets. He said, I don't want to wake up someday when I'm 50 years old or 55 and think to myself, man, damn, I wish I had done this, or shit, why didn't I do that?
So,
He's like, I live my life with one principle, and that's regret minimization, and that's why I did it. When people ask me, why didn't you get a job? Like, how could you launch a startup that was lock and stock when I was
yeah.
when you were 20, straight out of college? Like, what's wrong with you? Why wouldn't you go get a job, or why wouldn't you get a master's, or these other rules in life that people have to do?
Yeah.
I give them the story about Jeff Bezos, and it's I think it's an incredible story.
Absolutely.
And for any aspiring entrepreneur, just ask yourself, do you want to wake up someday when you're 50 years old and think to yourself, could I have done that, or should I have done this? And if the answer is no, then go for it and do it. If it
So,
works, that's awesome, and if it
yeah.
doesn't, it's okay. At least you tried. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think even like taking risks stems a lot from how much faith and belief you have in yourself. So I think that is also so important. Like when you're taking risks like these, you need to, like you said, have faith, have hope, and just have belief that you have it in you to conquer it all. So excellent, excellent, beautiful, Craig. I think we can now head to the last segment of the podcast, which is a rapid fire, so that the audience
Awesome.
knows you a little better, and so do I. So are you ready, Craig?
Sounds good. Hit me.
All right, great. So, first question for you is what superpower would you like to have?
Being able to see into the future.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, that's cool. What is the last movie that made you laugh out loud?
I've seen Superbad like 25 times, and I watched it last week, and it still makes me crack up with laughter,
That's
cry with laughter. So Superbad.
super bad. All right. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Coffee. No sugar with milk.
No sugar with milk. All right. If you could switch lives with one person for a day, who would it be?
Elon Musk. We spoke earlier about multitasking. The man runs
Yeah.
multiple billion-dollar companies. I'd love to know
Yeah.
how he does it.
All right. Excellent. If you had to eat one cuisine for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
Oh, has to be American fast food, what casual, whatever. Burgers, pizza, whatever. Hit me. 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, no problem whatsoever.
All right. I think many people would choose this. All right. Okay. Which book has impacted you the most in your life?
Good to Great by Jim Collins. I read that book when I was 13 years old. I've read it 6 times since then. I try to read it once a year at least. It is incredible. It is basically an analysis on how visionary founders built companies that last for 100 years, what they do differently. Highly recommended.
All right. Excellent. What are three items that you would like to take on a deserted island?
uh, my phone, my laptop, and Good to Great, the book.
So you'll be working there on a like deserted island.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really too big on like building rafts or crafts or whatever. So if I'm on a deserted island, I'm basically stuck there. I might as well do something with that time. But I'm not the person that can build a boat and like sail off the island or something. If someone saves me, they save me. Otherwise, I'm screwed.
Or you just yeah. Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. And the last question is that if you could give one advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Um, that's a hard one. Never stop believing. Just go follow your heart and never stop believing. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, Craig, that was the end of this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. It was a
Did I
very,
win the
very
hamper?
insightful.
Did I win the hamper with the rapid fire?
Yeah, you have won the hamper. I'll mail it to you. Will reach you like in the next day or so. All right. And yes, so Craig, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And it was a very, very good session. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I'm pretty sure the audience has a lot to learn. And yeah, all of Craig's social links will be down in the description. You can follow him everywhere where he is. And yeah, Craig, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Nikhil. Thanks to everybody who watched this podcast. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, if anybody wants to connect with me directly, just hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm not on any other social media, unfortunately, but DM me on LinkedIn.
All
I'd
right.
love to chat.
All right. So Craig's social, like LinkedIn, will be down in the description, so you can definitely connect with him there. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.